Welcome to Stress-Free IEP. You do not need to do it all alone. With your host, Frances Schefter, Principal of Schefter Law. You can get more details and catch prior episodes at www.schefterlaw.com. The Stress-Free IEP video podcast is also posted on YouTube and LinkedIn, and you can listen to episodes through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Now, here's the host of Stress-Free IEP, Frances Schefter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today's special guest is Casey Joseph, and she is the Executive Director and founder of Casey's Special Education Services. So, Casey, tell us a little bit about Casey's Special Education Services. Where did it come from? What's its purpose and mission?
So first, I'll just start by saying thank you so much for having me. Been very, very looking forward to this and this conversation today. Casey's Special Ed, I always say, does not start with some sort of glamorous story. I never intended to start a company, thought I would be an entrepreneur, really loved teaching in the special ed charter schools of DC and wasn't sure what was going to be next for me in my career, but definitely did not think the entrepreneurial route would be it. So I started working with one student on a Sunday. That's how I always tell the story. It all started really just with one student outside of my time as a special educator, working with one kiddo privately. And then from there, really grew. So in a nutshell, I describe Casey's Special Ed as wraparound special education services. Parents often will come to us for special education tutoring in their home. And then from there, it builds with things like IEP support, referral and collaboration with providers, private school placement, document review, social skills groups, so on and so forth. So when we say wraparound and comprehensive, I like to think of like tutoring at the top and then sort of those different layers that often families need support with. So when I started with that one kiddo, it really started with the academic piece, working on those skills, and holistically, naturally built from there. And that's what led us to where we are today.
Which makes sense because as we all know, especially as special ed parents, is that it takes a village, which is part of the reason for my show, is like, let's help each other build a village. So you've kind of morphed into a one-stop shop almost.
Yes.
You know,
and
when it's
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and so when you might not provide those services, then you'll link the families to somebody that will.
Exactly. Always. And I was just having this conversation with my outreach director, Lynn, this morning. It's important for us to be intentional about that. I don't want to be everything for everyone, and we shouldn't be. I have a team of special education teachers, and that's what we do. We teach, we provide that IEP support. We do what special ed teachers do well. But when it comes to law, when it comes to speech therapy, when it comes to mental health support, neuropsychological evaluations, we can go on and on. That's where I really lean on my community, but also look at how can we work together post-evaluation? How can we work together when a family is in crisis, navigating a crazy IEP or a crazy transportation case? The list goes on. But I think that's a big, big, big piece of the work, is that collaboration with so many amazing colleagues that we have in the DMV. So yes, it's a great point.
Yeah, no, and I love that because it's like, they say when you try to be an expert at everything, you're an expert at nothing. Yeah, because that's, like so many people with practicing law, like for solo practitioners, they call them door law. We practice door law, which means anything that comes in the door, which works for some types of cases, but special education, absolutely positively not. It's not, like you got to know what you're doing. You got to know the law, and you have to understand IEPs and how to build an IEP.
It's a foreign language.
Right.
And I think that's why families need this support. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer in a different discipline, you can be the manager of a grocery store, or any career. But if you don't know the special education language, it's really difficult to figure it out on your own. even with AI and research and all of it. So I think having someone who is really deeply invested, whether it's from that teacher perspective or from more of an advocate or an attorney's perspective, I think us all working together, we come at it from different lenses. We're really educationally focused, right? And I think that is so beneficial to our families that they have those different bird's eye views that are all helpful and part of the plan and part of the process and part of that village. So yes, and I love that you said one-stop shop. It really hit, I feel like for me, defines us, and the it's not just let's provide comprehensive support to families. It's let's not make them have to call 7 different resources when these are things that we can do in-house. And our team likes it, the families like it. They like that the person that's really getting to know their child from an academic educational standpoint can support with these other pieces of the puzzle. So it's just an interesting thing to know.
Yeah, no, definitely having a shorter provider list makes life easier as well, like the contacts of who to call when.
For sure. And even just a simple email introduction to, hey, Mr. So-and-so, here's my great attorney friend, Frances Schefter. She can help you with everything law related. And guess what? She was also a special educator. So that's a cherry on top. And so I just think that warm handoff and just I tell families, I don't charge for this. This is just, oh, I can see that Johnny, your son, could benefit from working with this OT in Montgomery County. So is it okay if I introduce you in an email? And it's such a simple thing, but if it's one less item on the to-do list, it feels good.
Right.
So
I'm the same way. Yeah. And that's how Stress-Free IEP, the podcast, came about. It kind of like morphed into, my cousin and I did the first one. She's a neuropsychologist and she did, explaining what the numbers mean. And as it developed, it became into this, a resource for families. And like, I now keep track of everybody and everything in my system. So anybody can call my firm and be like, hey, do you know somebody that does XYZ? And anybody in my firm can go into our system and figure it out and be like, yep, here's a referral. Because again, like it's the less people we have to remember to like, oh, who should I ask for this? The easier, as you know.
Yeah. And I get the feedback from clients a lot about too many cooks in the kitchen is just challenging. And so I was just having this conversation with a new family of ours. They have a 3-year-old. They're in Chevy Chase, Maryland. And we were just talking about how, is it better to have more opinions? Sometimes it can feel overwhelming, but at the same time, I think so many families on the educational front on where their child should be academically. And if they're not where they need to be, what is there to do about that, both from the home front and the school front and the therapy front and all the fronts. And so just having someone that can say, okay, well, now I've gotten to know your son or daughter and I can see what their skills look like. I can see where some of the gaps might be. I can see what accommodations might make sense that are not already in place. All of that information can just be helpful. And it's sometimes just telling the family, okay, here's what I think. Is this helpful? Usually I get a yes, but it's the you didn't have to ask me. I'm just like, hey, have you noticed, or is this something you've considered? And that's really the lens we like to take is we might not have a defined plan for the year on day one because we're holistic and we're developing as we're getting to know the child. But I think just to have someone who's in close contact to navigate so many of these moving parts is helpful. Beyond just the tutoring component of the work.
Right. And, it's people don't know what to ask sometimes. Like, I get that question. I'm sure you do also of like, well, what can I ask for when it comes to accommodations, when it comes to services, when it comes to goals and all of that other stuff? Parents don't always know what's available and what they can. So like you coming in and being like, okay, so this is what we see. Parents are probably like, oh, I didn't even think about that, or I didn't know that existed.
All the time. It is one of the most common things that we hear of. And from my team, I get that feedback as well. So I'll just sort of take a step back for a second and note that part of the company, as I say, I don't do this alone. It would be a shame to take credit for all of this work. I have a team of 26 women right now. We just hired our 26th special educator. Crazy. And everybody is always sharing when we have check-ins, when we meet as a team, that for them, just walking into a space and saying to a parent like, oh, have you thought about a private preschool for your child? Maybe that's a better fit. Or has anybody ever shared with you about an AAC device for your child, or just something of a thought-provoking? It is more often than not that the parent shares, you're the first person to say that to me or suggest that. And that, I think, for a parent is so meaningful, to have someone who can like get it and like, oh, you see it, you understand. Yes, thank you for filling in this piece that I just maybe wasn't sure was missing or wasn't sure how to fill it in. So it's helpful feedback to hear that from you as well.
Yeah. No, it's so important because I'm thinking back of clients that I've heard comments of. It's like, why didn't the doctor see this? And I'm like, because how often does this doctor see you? Once a year for 20 minutes?
Right.
Like, okay, maybe 30 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Like they can't, as comprehensive as they try to be, and most are, the pediatricians can't do it all and see it all. And, developmental pediatricians, and then the physical therapists and the occupational therapists and all the other, like, to be able to have a one person being able to look at all of it and then take that step back and say, oh, wait a minute. And not necessarily that you guys can provide the OT or the PT, but like you can say, like, I noticed this, maybe it's something you should look at. And I know for me as a parent, when somebody says that, I get this aha of like, oh, wait a minute. And it's, it's always welcomed. Sometimes it's rejected because it's not right, but it's always welcome because, like, I know for me, I want to hear what other professionals, like people I have in my life, I respect as professionals.
Totally.
And as they say, like, when my AC breaks, I'm going to call an HVAC specialist. I'm not going to call the guy that painted my house, like,
Right.
let me go to the specialists that know what they're doing.
And it's funny, I'm laughing in my head. I'm thinking of the same 3-year-old in Chevy Chase that I was referencing before. I just met with family and I said, I know you have like 7 speech therapists, but I have one really great one that I work with a lot. And she's super specialist when it comes to AAC and complex communicators. And she just provides excellent consultation beyond what I know. I know AAC devices pretty well because I've worked with so many students over the years that have used them. So as a special educator, whether you're a speech path or not, you need to know how to help the child communicate. So do I know how to use it? Sure. Am I an expert in AAC devices? No. And I don't claim to be. So this provider that I'm thinking of, I said, I know it's another cook in the kitchen, but I really think she could be helpful. And just kind of looking at, okay, here's all the information of the speech therapist that they've provided in their recent assessments. Here's looking at the child, how they're engaging with the AAC. And then kind of from her own insight and experience, where do we go from here from a 3-year-old? Like, it's such an interesting age when it comes to using an AAC, because it's this cross between, it's so new to them and fresh, and how do we make sure this is not a toy, this is a real communication device. But having someone who's an expert consult on that, even if it's just an hour, it doesn't need to be anything super extensive, but just that piece can make my instruction with this child so much more meaningful. And so that's where I think the collaboration really comes in. It's like, what does collaboration mean? It's beyond just a referral to me. It's like, how can I really bring the people in my life in to say, this might be something that you really know. I know that I don't know enough about this, but like, maybe you can help the family, or can you just share with me some information? And sort of thinking about, question mark, where do we go from here? If we can't support the family ourselves. So,
right.
Yeah.
And like, I agree with the too many cooks in the kitchen sometimes, but also sometimes you need that second opinion, because, again, you hire a professional, you're hoping they're a professional, you're hoping, okay, they're licensed, they have a good website, they have good reviews, but you don't know, is this the right fit for my client, for my child? Is this the right fit for my family? And sometimes getting another look and like, oh, wait a minute, like while this person is fabulous, this person might be a better fit because of XYZ, you know, just like I have so many different on the show, you know, like I might have several different tutors and stuff, but each have their own specialty and each have their own connection or availability. Like I know you said you provide services in person, which is unusual these days. Almost everybody is virtual. So
Yeah. I actually think that's a really good point. And it's why we do well with the kids we do well with. We see everybody across the neurodiverse spectrum under the umbrella of special education, from kids who are in high performing private schools and have ADHD and dyslexia and are really struggling because obviously they might not be on par with their peers. The workload is increasing, the difficulties increasing. And so they need someone who might be a little bit beyond a tutor, a little more specialized, who understands that dyslexic ADHD profile. Just as an example. But for me, when it comes to the fit and what you're talking about with that, that's something we take so seriously, because I say to my educators, I know it's really frustrating maybe to drive 30 minutes sometimes to go see Kate, but if that's a really strong fit for you, and maybe you can stack it with another student down the street, if you're lucky, then it, it's so meaningful to have the good fit versus the kid that's around the corner that really wasn't the right match for you and might not be a good long-term fit. On average, I always share this on my inquiry calls. Our families use our services for around a year at least. And so a year's a long time. It's a big investment. It's important that the individual who's working with your child one-on-one in the home, it's a very personal setting, is the right, not just academic fit, but personality. Maybe it's they're very into girly things and Taylor Swift and Pink, and so is the girl that the educator's working with. So that I am thinking of a very specific case.
right.
Very well together because they both have similar interests, and she's a tween, and it just goes. So I have, of the 26 on my team, it is A to Z across the DMV families, but I have an educator who's in like rural Leesburg, farmy kind of area. And then you have DC urban educators, to Montgomery County, born and raised, to Fairfax, and all the way out to Waldorf. And all these regions and educators are very different in themselves and also the kids that they work with, which allows me to say, I could see these two together. I think this is going to be a really strong fit. So, just to talk about like a little bit of the intention behind that match.
No, that's great. I love you saying that, because so often it's like, well, let me see. Okay, what days are you available? You're available Tuesdays and Thursdays. Let me see who I have available on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's not what I want to hear. I want to hear who's the right fit for my child, you know, because I don't care. Like if you tell me, okay, look, yeah, I have these two people that are available on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I have this perfect person that I think would be such a good match and is only available on Wednesdays. Can we make that work?
Yeah.
As a parent, that's what I want to hear. Okay, let me make that work. You know,
Yeah.
What do you have? Like, please match my kid with the provider, not my time with their time.
Yes. And it's beyond availability. And it's a game of Tetris. Scheduling and availability is important.
Yeah.
Most of the clients that we serve have additional therapies, additional services that they receive on the weekends, after school, all the time. So it's important that that matches up, sure. But at the end of the day, I might say to a family, or my co-director, Lily, she's our director of services. She will manage some of these tidbits as well. We'll say, hey, I have someone for you, but they can't start for a month, but we really believe like this is the most perfect fit for your daughter. And that's it's frustrating to wait a month or 2 months, but at the end of the day, I think to know that we really took the time, and it's beyond I'm available Wednesday at 5 kind of thing, or we can get you in next week. Sooner is not necessarily better. We want to make sure that, or sometimes it's the extent of, hey, we have a medically fragile child. We need an educator who's very flexible and understands maybe last minute cancellations or lots of schedule changes because he has a lot of surgeries and treatments and different things coming up. So we get a lot of very eclectic, complex cases that require more than just what I would say, more than just a tutor, because our kids have specialized needs and it requires a specialized person to address that. So yeah, just again, just sort of
And I
share.
was yeah, like as a parent, I'm sure you parents out there have had this happen that you hire a provider to do a certain whatever, and it wasn't a good fit. You know, nothing wrong with that provider necessarily, but it wasn't a good fit for your child. And so now you've just wasted how much time and how much money. I'd rather wait a month for somebody like, you've read my child's profile, your people. And I'm assuming you're the type of being like, you know what, I get it and I get what your child needs. And right now we don't have anybody for you. So, like, let's pass you on. Here's another recommendation that might fit your needs better.
You're so right, and often I get that when I just hired, finally, you would think after 26 people, finally got a bilingual educator. Shout out to Miss Alex. Miss Alex just came on as our bilingual English Spanish. So I should stop and say, we have a nice handful of bilingual educators, but they're second or even trilingual, third languages. None of them were Spanish. And it's so funny because it's very common. But finally, I found someone who's so excellent, Miss Alex, and she just came on. And that's a very specific request. Bilingualism is something that we get, I wouldn't say often, but it's happened a nice handful of times that I'm like, oh, man, I don't have someone who's bilingual for you in Spanish, and that I'm so sorry. And I think that's the tough part sometimes is they're looking for special educator and bilingual, or sometimes it can be even special educator, bilingual, certified in Orton Gillingham, right? It can be many different buckets and so we really do our best to have. It is so cool to see how sometimes we're able to say, oh my goodness, Miss Meredith has literally checks every single box for this family. And are we perfect 10 out of 10 times? No, but I just actually had this question from a parent yesterday. What's your success rate with matching educators to clients? And I would say above 90% for sure. It's hard. I don't have a crystal ball. So there's always sometimes where a few months go by, we try it and we just feel like the personality fit wasn't a good fit, or they needed more flexibility in their schedule. And the educator had a too packed of a schedule. So sometimes those things happen and we navigate them as they come, but we really do our best to avoid that. So to me, I'm happy with a 90+ success rate with the matches. And yes, it's definitely a big part of the work for sure.
Yeah, no, I can see that because it matters. It's just, there's so many of us out there in all of our different fields, and like, how do you choose? Well, you know what? Interview a few, see if it clicks, because again, like, it's not always people get so offended. Like, I don't know if you've seen this or not, like in IEP meetings or stuff like that. Like when we go in and we tell a school, look, we don't think this is the right placement for the child. Some teachers get so offended, like that is a personal attack on them. And I always take that step back and I'm like, look, you guys are phenomenal. You have gone above and beyond. It's just not the right fit for this child. This child needs more, and you don't have the resources or the ability to provide it. Like, I know if you as the teacher had unlimited resources and a smaller class size, you would 100% be a good fit. But right now, you're not. And it's nothing negative on you. It's just that we need something different. This child needs something different. And please notice that,
Such a strong point, Frances. And I think it really connects to me. A little light bulb went off as you're talking. It connects a lot to me. Folks always ask, just to give some context, I started Casey Special Ed in November of 2022. So it will be 3 years this November. We're about 2.5 years in, let's say. And I get a question a lot. How'd you grow your business so quickly? How are you able to grow this size? One, this was never the intention. I started with 8 kids. I was like, okay, this is going to be good. I'll be happy. I'll have a great life. My little 8 clients. And then it, became more than 8 quite quickly, much quicker than expected. But I share this to say, I think there's a huge need for the supplementary support. And schools, while you can be such a fabulous teacher, while your school principal can be on it, and the team and the collaboration and the resources, and you're in a strong county and all the things, there's just so many kids with IEPs and 504s, and there's just only so much capacity. The caseloads are getting larger. The diagnoses are increasing. We know this. So because of that, I think that's why, that's the answer right there. There is a need for kids that need beyond what they might be getting in their classrooms, whether they're in public, private, homeschool, but we see everybody. It's across the board. It's not. I always say it's not specific to one county, or it's really not, and age either. It's across the age span too. That the 1 hour of pull-out instruction a day, or even if they're in self-contained. I mean, really, it doesn't. It applies to everybody. I think most who we're serving, that these concrete foundational academic skills of phonics, of basic writing skills, of solving a math problem, a basic 1-2 step math problem. Some of these foundational skills our kids just didn't get at the same level as their peers, whether that's due to COVID, whether that's due to just not enough pull-out instruction. There's just not that capacity. There's so many factors, but
right. I was just going to say, or it's just that it takes them a little bit longer for the light bulb to go off.
correct.
I used to say that all the time when I taught elementary school. Like, it was one of the most amazing things was watching, because I taught kindergarten and then I taught reading for a little bit, and watching the kid when that light bulb connected, for the they get it, and all of a sudden they're reading and it connects, and their reading takes off like that. And, sometimes it happens in kindergarten, sometimes it happens in first grade, sometimes it takes till second grade, and that's okay. Yeah. Just knowing where it's going. It's so, and there's something else I was about to say and I totally lost
it. Comes back to you.
I know it will.
Let me know.
Yeah.
But I love what you're saying, and I think it's so true. Really, I do think that the virtual learning of a year to 2 years that many kids experience, for a lot of our neurodiverse kids, it just was unsuccessful. And we know that. Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I just remembered. The other thing, like, one of the things I often say to potential clients, like, I know, we offer a strategy session. So it's not a consultation, it's a paid strategy session with an attorney. And what we do is we talk through what are the issues and what are your goals. Now let's seek a path of what makes sense with your financial restraints, with what you want for your child, and what's realistic to expect from the school. Now, we know legally the schools have to provide blah, 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 but they also only have to provide mediocre. They don't have to provide the Cadillac. And so,
right.
We all want the Cadillac for our child, period. We want to figure out, right? But so, like, there's times, like, and this one potential client always comes back to my mind, is that he was a 7th grader and had just got diagnosed with dyslexia and dysgraphia. And so, does the school have to provide services, pull-out services? 100%. Can the school realistically provide the services to get your child where your child wants to be without losing so much content? Because when is the pullout going to happen? Because a lot of schools don't let the pullout happen during lunch or recess or electives. So you're getting pulled out from your core classes. Yeah. I know from my daughter's experience, usually with dyslexia and dysgraphia, I need 3 to 4 hours a week of instruction to get up where you need to be. Well, correct. Can I get that in your IEP? 100%. Do you want your child to miss 3 to 4 hours a week in a subject?
No.
In school? No. Right. And so that's the balance we play. And so what I in this case, I said, I was like, look, you can hire me. I can get you an IEP in place. Honestly, for where your child is and what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, the IEP he has is fine. Take the money and hire a specialist on dyslexia and dysgraphia. Spend the money on 6 months to a year, however long it takes to get your child up to where it is to learn the way they want to learn. Because it just makes more sense.
Yeah.
And, for me, it's all about the kid and getting the children what they need and getting them where they need to be. And, Yes, again, legally responsible. Do the schools have to? 100%. But to what cost of your child?
I
Okay.
love this point. I have so many thoughts. I'll start with my first thought will be I'm thinking back to, okay, so I started the business end of 22. So we're getting out of that COVID era. And it's like we're really seeing the scores and the reading skills of
Yeah.
this country and what is going on. It's like, OMG. And then you see kids with IEPs and the gaps are just getting wider. Like that's really, as a special educator in a low-income charter school in DC, that's where I was. I had a big caseload of pre-K and kindergarten kiddos with IEPs, most on the spectrum, most with complex learning needs. And what you see is great. I can pull Johnny and Sarah out for 30 minutes in the morning, which stinks because that's circle time in kindergarten, which is like so great. And they really should be there. But if, again, when I have a caseload of 17 students or whatever it was, there's only so many hours of the day.
Exactly.
To do that. And even if you have two people splitting up that caseload, it was just never enough for the hours that they really need to catch up to the gen ed expectations, the general education expectations. And that's why I love what you're saying. It's like our kids might be second grade and have a lot of skills that are still on that kindergarten or first grade level or pre-K level because that's just how their brain works. And it wasn't built for the general education curriculum or the way even that it's just taught. The verbiage that's used is just sometimes just too abstract for our kids. It doesn't mean that they're unintelligent. It just it's not built for them. That's what we so always talk about, which is so challenging. But what we get to do is bring some of those same skills, same concepts to the home for an hour and a half with a student. And instead of it being on a black and white worksheet or a PowerPoint or, so on and so forth, it can be a little bit more tactile, hands-on. So I always say, I want to get your child to do 2+1, but it might look and feel and sound a little different the way that we're getting there with modeling and visuals and tactile and all the things of multisensory instruction, because that's what's successful based on research for our students. But is multisensory instruction being utilized in every school in America? Not exactly. So
And they can't,
of course.
Right. Like you can only teach, you have what, 20, well, 20, I wish, 25 to 30 kids in a class usually these days, even in, Montgomery County, like in all of your schools, it's like 25 to 30 kids in your class. And the teachers have to teach to the majority. And so we have the kids at high end and kids at the lower end that get a little bit lost because they can't get taught up. Now, hopefully, if you have a really good teacher, you start pairing the high end with the low end and they can work together and help each other out. But that's not always possible either. And so it's so complex. Like our school system in the States, as fabulous as it is compared to other countries,
Totally.
it still has so much work to do because it hasn't been updated or changed with the times, COVID forced some changing with the times because it had to, because we all went virtual, but still not fully changing to where we are today. Like my daughter asks a question. If I say, I don't know, she's like, well, search it up, look on Google, ask Siri. It's like in my day, I was like, well, go pull let's go to the library tomorrow, or we have the encyclopedias upstairs and go pull the encyclopedias. We didn't have internet. We didn't have it all in our hands at the phone. And so how do we change our instruction and how we're teaching our kids to fit with all of that?
Yeah. And it's really hard. I think that's where we see that. I always say when I do my calls or I share about what we do, I say we focus on two components with our clients: academic and social emotional. Why? Because they're very connected and intertwined. And when our kids are dysregulated or they're frustrated or exhausted or whatever the feeling or emotion is, to say that doesn't affect their academic performance, that's not true. It of course does. And then vice versa. So I think for us, we're really considerate of they are living in a modern world, 2025 tech. We have it now. It's instant gratification, instant information. And now I'm sitting at your house with a whiteboard and saying, no, we're going to show our steps for the math problem. Because what happens, friends, is if we don't show our steps, the teacher doesn't give us credit, and then it's a big problem. So that's where we see that
Which
frustration.
kills me.
Yeah.
Because sometimes our brains don't work that way. I was at Poolsville Day with my sister and the kids, and we met a friend of hers who had like 2 engineering degrees. And he's like, yeah, I almost failed elementary school math because my brain didn't work to show my work. He's like, I never showed my work. I could figure it out, but I didn't know how to break it down and show my work. But he has 2 engineering degrees. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, this kid knew what he was doing and was smart, but because of the way our school system is, and I get it, I understand, show your work so we know you're doing the processes, but that doesn't work for everyone.
No.
Right?
No. So really getting through those tough moments with clients is a beautiful part of the work. I think right now I've been doing summer check-ins one-on-one with my team, and I'm almost at the like end of them. But what I've been hearing over the last few weeks is just talking about their caseload and how it's going with their clients. And it's just, I'm hearing a lot of similar themes of, I've seen so much social emotional growth within our sessions. Today, right before this, I had to check in with my educator working with a 2nd grader at a public school in DC. And he has an IEP with all the things on it, lots of push in, pull out, speech, OT, full wraparound support. And he's in a general education kind of inclusion setting. Very complex learning disabilities profile, kind of up and down across the neuropsych eval. So anyways, I give this to say, she was talking about how it's not that he can't do the math problem. It's that to get him there and to get through it, and the before and the hump is it's the anxiety, it's the avoidance, it's the I don't like math part of the component of the work, that we're not just there to say, yeah, let's teach you 2 + 1. It's like, this feels like it's a lot. Let's talk about it. How can we get through 2 + 1 without it feeling like it's a tsunami? And so we're not therapists. I'll never claim to be. We're not. We're all
But it's
licensed.
mindset. It's mindset about everything. If you like, I remember I had a kid, it was a young adult, like doing their math test to get to teaching, and I guess it was the praxis or the national teachers exam, whichever it was, and like kept failing the math. And I'm like, well, what's your mindset going in? Well, I can't do math. I hate math. I'm never going to pass this. I'm like, well, if you tell yourself you're never going to pass it, guess what? You're never going to pass it. Whether you think you can or can't, you're right. And so like getting that, like, you know what, it's going to be hard, but guess what? You know how to do hard things.
Yeah.
You've done it before. Woo. And we'll get you through it again. You know, like, right. Like that's the thing. And that's where the social emotional comes in. Like, it's not just about the teaching the 1 + 2, you know, it's the, oh, I get it. I can do it. It's going to be hard. I don't like doing it, but at least I can get through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those who are listening or will be listening, I think that's like such an important point here, about, it's not just like my child is struggling in math, reading, and writing, which is what most of our kids have challenges with, those 3 big ones. It's not just it's okay, but is there anything else that is inhibiting their academic performance and engagement? Are we maybe not seeing them at the right time? Would a Saturday morning when they're fresh be a better time? And we might see less fatigue, more engagement. And so we really I always emphasize, we're really a holistic practice. It's not just, that emphasis is not just on the academic skills. Of course, it's a big component, but it's really looking at the whole, it's so overused, but like the whole child and everything. Right. And it is, but it's so true. And that's, to me, what was such an important part when I started with this 1 4-year-old girl in DC. It was such a big piece of it was, if mom and dad told me that so-and-so didn't sleep all night long and now we're supposed to have a session, then like maybe we shouldn't have the session if she's completely a zombie exhausted, because how meaningful is it going to be? And it also puts this negative connotation for the child with the individual that's coming to their house to make them learn when they're exhausted. It's sort of this, I look at all those different factors. So I always tell my team, just, we want to be, of course, as consistent as possible, but evaluate when you get to that home and you see where your student is, think about, do I need to pivot right now and change what my original plan was for today? Or are we okay and can we go in? Or maybe 10 minutes into your session, you see, all right, I think we need to take a step back, try something else, come back to this, do 10 minutes of deep breathing exercise, whatever it is that works, because it's not about the quantity. It's not how many math problems did you get done in our 1 hour session. You can do that on your own on an online IXL website, right?
Yeah.
So we're there to help you get through it, and that's where the progress comes in. So I love these conversations around this because
Yeah.
it's so important to me.
And it's so true. Like, what was I reading? I'm trying to remember what it was, but it was something on Facebook or Instagram or one of the posts saying something about percentages, and just what hit home is that studies have shown higher 17% higher test scores when kids have had a good breakfast. So why aren't we making breakfast for free for all kids in the mornings? Period. You're hungry, you come eat. You know what I mean? Like, and I remember when I used to teach, because I taught in the inner city, and I knew which kids didn't come with breakfast. And the cafeteria staff was phenomenal and knew what I was doing and always made sure I had cereals and milk and, whatever fruit they could do. I had one student that I knew was always looking for food on Fridays, and I knew he probably didn't eat all weekend. So I always made sure he went home with a bag of cereal and milk, so he at least had something for the weekend. And it's like simple things like that. Of like, why are we making sure our kids are fed? Like, really? Like, you're spending all this money on what? Like, let's just feed our kids. Free lunch for everybody too. You know what I mean? Like really, let's look at, because even in all of the neighborhoods, in your Bethesda, in your Potomac, in your, wealthier communities, there are kids that don't have breakfast, not because the parents can't afford it necessarily. Sometimes it's because they can't, but sometimes it's just because they didn't get out the door in time. They didn't have time in the morning, and just little things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Too much screen time. Too
Yeah.
many. Right. And I say, I've been hearing in another recent theme with my check-ins with the team has been the screen time and the tech time, and how to encourage parents to, especially when we're coming to the home, if we have a 5 o'clock session on a Tuesday evening, we always create consistent schedules with our families. It's every Tuesday and Thursday at this time, right? It's keeping it on the calendar, recurring. So everybody knows when we're coming. Everybody gets calendar invites, but it's still challenging because moms and dads have a million things, and grandmas and whoever's the caregiver has a million things going on. And so, but when it comes to that 4:45 window, just to give a warning, just to show a visual of a timer can really be helpful with dysregulation and transition to the session. And if we're going to build this successful relationship, which is of course the whole goal, we have to make sure that like there is some sort of boundary around technology, especially when it's bridged with our sessions, because that is something that I definitely see. It's the summer, kids want to relax. We've honored that. We've decreased a lot of the services for our families that have request once a week instead of twice a week, or a break for the summer. We're flexible. We understand that a lot of kids need that, or families feel that for their kids. But I think around tech, it's so important to try to balance that piece.
And I remember pre-COVID, it was like all of us like, oh, limit on text, limit on technology and stuff. But like COVID, we don't have an option half the time. Like, what else are you going to do? You have to work. You have to have this meeting. You got to put the kid in front of the TV or the tablet, because it's what works. And as working parents, you do what we got to do. And like, you know what? Are your kids alive and fed and clean at the end of clean enough at the end of the day? You've done a good job. You know what I mean? Like stop beating yourself up about, do my kids do more tech than they should? Probably. Do my kids do homework? Nope, not at all. Because, that's just doesn't work with our lifestyle right now. And that's okay.
I think I love that. I think giving yourself grace is so important. I think it's something that we really try to emphasize of Like, it's okay, give yourself grace. We also look at that as a bridge between the school. I'm thinking of a fifth grader I work with who was sent home with this crazy size math packet that was due over after like a week. And it's, those big,
Yeah.
scary, they're not fun, they're not game based, they're really scary looking, and they're all probably for map testing or whatever they need to do. And I just look at this and I say, this is 100, 200, like, it's crazy how many problems are on this sheet. And this is a bright, twice exceptional kid. But we're looking at this together and just thinking, okay, how can we connect with the teacher and just see if there's possibility for us to do odds and evens? Because it's just like, for a fifth grader to come home and this is being given in like the last month of school.
Yeah.
And this is what he's doing every day. We want our kids to get outside. We want them to play. We want them to have fun. I'm the first person to say, take your kids outside for the lesson. I just had one of my favorite sessions I've ever had with the kid. My teenager I work with, he's 15. Another 2E kid. Love my 2E kids. And he and him and I did a descriptive language lesson outdoors. And we wrote a paragraph about using the senses. Here's what I observe outside. And of course we did brainstorming. So we worked on the pre-writing process and then the outline. And it was pretty much what we would have done inside, but it was creative and it was tactile, and we touched the leaves, and and it was so fun. And it was like one of the best sessions he's ever had in 6 months. And it just shows, why was it one of the best sessions? It's not random. When you switch up the environment, make it more flexible, show your kids that it doesn't have to be black and white. We don't have to sit at the desk today, and that's okay. And everybody's going to live.
Exactly. It'll all adjust. And I just realized the time. And I'm like, I keep looking out because it is storming here. I don't know if it is by you, but it is like torrential downpours. And it was like the thunder and everything. I'm like, ew, okay.
Oh no,
no, it's not hail. I was gonna say, it looks like hail.
It's a cloudy day in DC, but no.
Out in Rockville, we are storming like crazy now. But this has been so awesome. So Casey, how, like, if somebody's like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to Casey, I need to find out, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I always say, if you go to our website, it's www.casey, like my first name, and then the word THE, and then Speducator. So Casey, the Speducator.com, and it's like special educator, but combined.
Awesome.
So if you go on the website, there's lots of places to connect and reach out. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, Casey Special Education Services, Facebook, very active, really any of those platforms. Feel free. That's kind of what I always say there. Just give us a little information. I always speak with every parent for free for 30 minutes. Even if we're not the right fit and I can share with you a great resource, I am always open to that. So that's kind of always the first step. Just let's chat on the phone.
Yeah. And to see if it works. That is so awesome. So thank you so much, Casey, for being on the show and sharing all your information. As always, like, I could talk to you all day, like, it just, we're so same in the passion of, like, it's about the kids, and that's what it's all about.
100%.
Yeah. So,
thank you so much for having me, Frances. I appreciate it. And get home safe. Don't get too wet on your way out of work.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Stress-Free IEP with your host, Frances Schefter. Remember, you do not need to do it all alone. You can reach Frances through schefterlaw.com, where prior episodes are also posted. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing the show with others through YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more.